and that they help promote developmental language, it develops language skills and rhyme and pitch, phonics concepts, and all of that. Many nursery rhymes actually were coded rumors and relayed news all wrapped up in allegory. It was a way for people to complain about the kings and queens of England in the 1700s without people knowing that that's what they were really doing. So, for instance, Mary, Mary, quite contrary refers to Queen Mary. In fact, the silver bells and cockle shells were all influence of torture, but we won't get into that. We have 3 blind mice, which were actually 3 Protestant bishops who were persecuted by Queen Mary, who is sometimes called the farmer's wife. And Humpty Dumpty was not actually an egg. And if you think about it, they never mention eggs in that verse anywhere. It was actually a cannon called Humpty Dumpty. It was in 1643 at the siege of Colchester. It was perched on a wall blew apart, Humpty Dumpty fell down, and no one could put it back together again. Baba Black Sheep goes back to 1275 and refers to the wool tax. When it said, Baba Black Sheep, have you any wool? 1 for the master, that was the king, 1 for the dame, that was the church, and originally they sang, and none for the little boy who lived on the lane, which would have been the shepherd. So it was a protest against the wool tax. But my favorite story, and I'm sorry, this goes for a little bit, but my favorite story is Pop Was a Weasel. Now, Pop Was a Weasel for sure goes back to the 1700s. They think it could refer to a spinner's weasel, which is something that goes back and forth while you are weaving, and when it gets to a certain length, it just pops and kind of wakes you up because it's been pretty boring up to that point. So it might be that, but more people seem to think that, especially according to Albert Jack, who is an author who wrote Pop Was a Weasel, he says it goes back to Cockney rhyming slang. And for instance, instead of saying wife, a Cockney would call her trouble and strife. Stairs becomes apples and pears. Feet are plates of meats. Wigs are syrup and figs. Suit is whistle and flute. And to make it even more confusing, they often would drop the last word. So, when a Cockney came up to you and said, "It nearly knocked me off my plate, she was wearing syrup." It nearly knocked me off my feet, she was wearing a wig. Now, all this being said, if money was bread and honey, you shorten that, it becomes bread. A fart is a raspberry tart, so when you shorten that, it becomes raspberries. I mean, it's like, oh, that's where that came from. Well, a coat was called a weasel and stoat. When you ran out of money, it was very common for you to take your good overcoat, take it to the pawn shop, get money for it, and then buy it back for Sunday, because you really only needed it on Sunday. So that's the way the money goes. Pop goes the weasel.